We're here at Kim Bailey's stable this morning, and we've just had a look at his gallops and the horses going out first and second lots. And we've got some questions for Kim as part of our Horse Talkers feature. First question. Good morning, Kim. Thank you for allowing us to come. Let's just start with your early days in National Hunt racing. From an early age, did you always want to be a National Hunt trainer?
I knew very early on that National Hunt training was the thing I needed to go and do. I loved it. My father was a trainer of a few horses and farmed. I found the farming side quite dull, and I really enjoyed the horses side. So yeah, I knew from the age of 7 I was going to be a racehorse trainer.
Excellent. And can you remember how it started off? Your first owner, your first horse, was it difficult?
It was always very difficult. I started off with about 4 horses, I inherited a few horses from my father when I first started. So my first winner was a horse called Shifting Gold, ridden by John Frankham. That one at Sandown, a day I never forget, for obviously you remember the first and last thing you've ever done in life, so there we are, I remember that. Nigel Twiston-Davies came along and supported me, and he brought a horse with him called Emperor's Gift. So they were a long time ago, but they were memorable days.
Great memories, great memories. And you've spoken about your first winner. Did you feel nervous when you started to have your first runners? Were you confident, or was it something that you were nervous about on a daily basis?
The day I stop getting nervous when I have a runner is the day I won't do it again, because at the end of it you have to have that adrenaline buzz to keep you going. Otherwise, there's no incentive to do it. You've got to be excited, and every time I have a runner, I get nervous.
You still get that feeling?
I still get that feeling. The only time I most probably don't when it's owned by me, so I don't have to make any excuses to anybody else.
And celebration-wise, did you celebrate big back in those days? Was it?
I've always been a very quiet person, go to bed early, and don't drink. So if you believe that, you believe everything.
And starting off as a trainer back then, what were the challenges? And would you say it's the same nowadays? Is it very different?
It's become a very, very different sport. I mean, in those days, social media didn't exist. Telephones were something that you used once in a blue moon. We used to write to all our owners and send them invitation or entry cards. We made entries 3 weeks in advance, so the whole thing was a completely different operation. Staff-wise, it was different. We had many more staff around. A lad would look after 2 horses when I first started. Now they do after 4 or 5, so it has changed dramatically. There was no summer racing, so therefore we actually got a break during the summer. It was nothing like as pressurised as it is now. We weren't, you didn't have the social media running around after you. You didn't have the papers dragging everything out. Your results were there, but they weren't criticised like they are now. Not that the racing post criticised, but it's not necessarily as hyped up as it is today. Sure.
More scrutiny now with social media.
Definitely. I mean, whatever happens now, as soon as you have a horse that's good enough, they start talking about Cheltenham from day one.
Yes.
In those days, Cheltenham wasn't the be-all and end-all, but there were other big meetings that people got excited about. Now, from the moment September turns up, Cheltenham is the thing that everybody gets excited about.
3-week entries must be very difficult. Must have been very difficult. I mean,
it was, but that's how you got used to it. You knew what you were doing, and they didn't cost a lot of money in those days. And I think it's changed dramatically now. You can imagine the year we've had this year with so much dry ground. You were making entries for horses in September, thinking by the time you got the first week in October it would rain, because it hasn't rained. So you wasted an awful lot of money. So
sure,
a lot of communication with your owners would have been a waste of time.
Yes. And going back to the beginning, were you very ambitious? Did you kind of see it as something that let's just see what happens, or were you very driven to get the big winners?
No, I'm afraid so. I was always pretty ambitious, and I was determined to train winners, and lots of them. Bizarrely, I never wanted to train 200 horses, but I've always enjoyed. I mean, if you do anything, you enjoy it, and the big days are what it's all about. So therefore, you try and train winners, and training winners. Whatever direction it is, selling hurdle for its own enjoyment that owner gives them is what it's all about.
And going into the big races that you've won, the biggest races, the Grand National, the Gold Cup, the Champion Hurdle, did you feel differently going into those races? Were you more nervous? Was it the same as, say,
no, I'm afraid to say, I suppose if you're a tennis player going into the finals of Wimbledon, you're going to get more nervous than you would do in the first round. So I am afraid to say, yes, you do get more nervous. You do think, and you do become very conscious that a horse will tread on a stone, and you're rather inclined to walk down the road in front of it to make sure it doesn't. So during the week you wouldn't even bother about it. So yeah, it does change dramatically.
Okay. And going back to a time in your career when you had to look for a new stable before you came to your current facility, just reading about that time and the articles and so on, it struck me as a very testing time. What are your memories of that? Was it very difficult?
It was a testing time, and I do know the silly part about it. I don't hold memories that last for very long, and I forget how difficult it was, how things went wrong. I'm a person who looks on the bright side of life, and I look upon every single door that opens as a new opening, and we came here by mistake, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Fantastic. And at the time you didn't consider anything outside racing, it was always let's find the next...
Everybody has asked me that same question. Everybody's tried to put into my head at some stage I'd pack up, and the only person who never thought about it was me.
Okay, fantastic.
I'm a very stubborn individual.
Very driven.
Whatever you want to put it, really.
And focusing on the personality behind the trainer, how would you describe yourself in 3 words? Just 3.
Just 3. Interesting, stubborn, and understanding.
That's good enough for me. And outside racing, do you have any pastimes?
Yes, fishing would be my number 1. Salmon fishing is the thing that really gets me relaxed. I can go fishing in Scotland and stand on the riverbank and walk into the riverbank with my phone in my pocket, and within 25 minutes it's been thrown on the bank.
Excellent.
That's the only thing that will ever make me do that.
Nirvana.
Yeah. Not only that, but I've fallen on enough rivers and I've ruined the phone.
Text message or WhatsApp?
I'm new. I've obviously been text messaging for a long time. So new to WhatsApp. I'm getting there slowly.
Okay. And apart from winning and losing, what are your favourite and least favourite parts of the job?
Well, obviously, losing is something I don't like doing. I hate this business of having to smile when you finish second, but you have to, because lots of people are very excited and very happy to finish second, even if I'm not. And you should never give the impression that you've been hugely disappointed, how much you really are disappointed, because we are in a sport where we're other people's hobby, and their hobby is just exciting for them, and to finish second in any races for them is probably very exciting as well. So,
sure.
Although it's not for me.
Okay, you always have to pretend you're happy with the outcome.
It's very important to put that brave face on,
Yes.
how difficult it might be.
Yes.
Try me after the Grand National. It's difficult.
Can you come up with 3 words that you think define National Hunt racing? Just from a point of view of someone looking in from the outside.
Excitement, involvement, and commitment, I think, possibly.
Okay. Do you have a favourite track or a favourite race?
I have. Well, I would love to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup again. That's something that would really appeal to me. I always dreamt of winning it, always wanted to win it, and achieved it. The Champion Hurdle I never expected to win, and did that. So the Gold Cup to me is the pinnacle of racing. The Grand National is what everybody remembers, so any of those races, but the Gold Cup is the thing I'd love to win again.
You want that feeling again?
There's no better feeling than standing on a podium at Cheltenham, let me tell you.
Of the races that you haven't won, the major races, what's the one you'd like to win?
I would dearly love to win a race on the flat at Royal Ascot.
Excellent.
Because that is something that I would never expect to go and do. It has happened. There are plenty of jump trainers that
Yes.
have done it, and there might be one day when one of my slow old hurdlers might suddenly sprint up the Royal Ascot, which should be quite fun.
Okay.
I know what